viewers, you're watching Face to Face and I'm Kritika Swani. In each episode of Face to Face, we feature someone who has achieved great success in their particular field and is a role model for the society. Today I have with me Dr. Farley Richmond. He's the director of the Center for Asian Studies at the University of Georgia. Welcome to TV Asia, Professor.
Thank you. It's nice being here.
So you teach the study of South Asia to the students in the University of Georgia. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, well basically I teach theater at the university in the Department of Theater and Film Studies. And so my focus is on India and on South India in particular. But I also teach courses in Asian theater in general, China, Japan, India, Southeast Asia. And I teach script analysis, and I teach directing, and I teach intro to theater, and we do a lot of things in our department.
So I want to know, what is it about the Indian culture and traditions that has influenced you or that has inspired you to go more in depth about the culture and the traditions?
Well, for one thing, when I first started my education, I actually had no knowledge of India, no interest in India. And it wasn't until I began my PhD work at Michigan State that I encountered my teachers, one of whom, Dr. James Brandon from the University of Hawaii, who had just finished a book on Southeast Asian theater. And so I studied with Dr. Brandon, and he also had a knowledge of kabuki and no. For some time before I'd gone to Michigan State, I'd been interested in kabuki and no. So I got interested, and I found India fascinating, ultimately getting a Fulbright and going to India and studying with Ibram Kazi at the National School of Drama, and who was the first director of the National School, and working with a lot of actors and theater people in India to focus on English theater in India after independence. That was my thesis subject. So
I want to know from you, what did you see the difference between the Western theater compared to the Indian theater, and how much of an influence did each one have on each other?
Well, the Indian theater was fascinating because of its liveliness, especially in the village theater. And although my first study was on English theater in India, mostly in the cities, I did see some performances in the villages. And so the next time I went to India, in the early 70s, I traveled to South India primarily, but I went all over India. I went to Assam, I went to Kashmir, I was in Gujarat and Maharashtra and Chennai and Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So I traveled a great deal and saw a lot in the villages. So I became very fascinated with the village theater because it seemed so lively and so integrating music, dance, and theater together. So that interested me because Western theater for so long focused on realistic acting and realism, and without the use of music except in the musicals. So what we ultimately found interesting in those days was the notion of what we called in those days total theater. So it was the notion that theater could be appealing because of its integration of all these arts, and also because it much of it in India was open air, outdoors at night, mostly all-night performances beginning at 9 at night and going till 6 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's fascinating to a Westerner, you know, because we have nothing like that here.
So next, I want to ask you that you did a play on Kuttiyatam Ramayana. So what was it about the Kuttiyatam Ramayana that you liked and you performed a play on it?
Well, I studied at the Kerala Kalamandalam in Cheruthruthi, Kerala. And I studied with a teacher who is one of the 23 people who can do this art form today. And it's a Sanskrit-based art, and it's in those days was mostly done in temples and only in Kerala temples. And so I became fascinated with this art form because it uses a lot of stylized gestures, expressions similar to dance, but they're used in connection with speaking. So what I did was study with him 74, 75, and then he and I talked about it and decided that if he got a grant to come to America, he would teach my students. And so lo and behold, we got a grant from the Asian Cultural Council in New York and brought him and a drummer from Kerala to Long Island. And we taught students to do this segments from the Ramayana. And these are segments that are all done in a traditional fashion in Kerala. And these are this art form is more than, it was revised in the 10th century.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a very old art form. And it was recognized by UNESCO as an intangible international property that should be preserved for humanity. So UNESCO then helped fund it along with the Japan Foundation. And so now it's still in a state of development from the point where it was when I first studied it in the 70s. It's now in fact coming out of its shell. But for many years, actors weren't permitted to perform anywhere but in temples. They couldn't perform, and people like me couldn't get into a temple because in Kerala it's restricted. Anybody who's a non-Hindu can't go into a Hindu temple in Kerala.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so even some of the great Christian singers in Kerala were not allowed into the temples, and there are many stories about how people tried to get in but couldn't. So I was actually fascinated with this whole thing, so I converted to Hinduism. And in order to see the plays in the temple theaters, there are special theaters that are constructed in these certain temples in Kerala for these performances. And these theaters are very special. These are some of the oldest theaters in India and are fascinating inside, constructed all of principally of wood that doesn't have nails in it. It's all interconnected. Yeah, interconnected pieces that are put together. And these huge theaters are built out of such construction. So I became fascinated. So then when my teacher came to Long Island, we tried to duplicate the effect of those temples in our scene design for the show. And we trained students to use gesture language, facial expression, eye movements. There are very elaborate eye movements in this art form. And so ultimately, one of my students who I just contacted the other day, she works for Armani, and so she got the film that we did of the show to be shown in their studios on Madison Avenue. And ultimately, it was shown at the Museum of Natural History in New York because it was so unusual. It was something so totally different that had never been seen before.
So we'll continue that conversation right after this break. Stay tuned with us.
Piyush Patel and Roshni Productions present Yade, tribute to the legend Lata Mangeshkar by Suma Nair. Sunday, 16 November 2014 at 5 p.m. at the prestigious Ritz Theatre, Elizabeth, New Jersey. For more information, call Roshni 732-333-8116.
एक घंटी बजी।
कौन बोल रहा है?
दो बिल्कुल ऑपोजिट लोग। ये फोन किसका है?
मेरी बेस्ट फ्रेंड अंजलि का फोन है।
चांस का चक्कर चला और फिर महेंद्र और रोशनी का भी।
किसी और की लव स्टोरी को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए वो गर्ल्स हॉस्टल में घुस गए और मेट्रन के डर से टॉयलेट में चुप गए।
हेतल को वो लड़का पसंद है जो सबसे अच्छा डांडिया कर सके। संभड़ियो।
आपके हार्ट में कोई एंट्री का वे है तो बता दो।
The way to my heart is this.
Exit.
Watch Love by Chance every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Hello Hello viewers, you're watching Face to Face and I'm here with Dr. Farley Richmond from the University of Georgia. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So we were talking about the Kuchiyattam Ramayana and I want to know how different is it from the original Ram Leela that we have seen for so many years?
Well, the Ram Leela, as I understand it, primarily is an outdoor performance that's done for large crowds of people. So sometimes you can have hundreds of thousands of people gathered to watch, especially in Ramgarh. You can have hundreds of thousands of people watching the Ram Leela, and it's organized into a series of episodes that are done in different parts of the city. And so in Varanasi, there are different events taking place in different parts, so that the audience moves from place to place. So it's quite a show that way, and so you can have very exciting activities going on. You have chanting that's done by the priests, that's done throughout the whole Ram Leela. Then you have these 24-hour long events that take place, and different days. So sometimes it's over a period of 10 to 15 days that it takes place. In Kudiyattam and the Kudiyattam Ram Leela, Ramayana, if you want to call it, is done in a segment that can be done only in a space that's like a theater or in a temple compound, and it doesn't move around. The audience stays put, and the actors perform in front of the deity of the temple. And so you have a very different kind of experience altogether. And there is, however, I mean, when we talk about long performances, and Ram Leela is like a long performance over a period of days, in Kudiyattam, you do have some plays that take as long as 35 days to perform. One act of one play.
Oh my God, 35 days?
For one small act of one play, it takes 35 days to do it. Because they have things that they call the beginning of the show, in which the actor introduces himself in gesture and facial expressions that night. Then the next day, he expands on his character. So you would have Sri Rama expanding on his character as going back in time, asking questions about what happened before this, what happened before this, what happened before Kishkinda, what happened before he married Sita, what happened when he was first born, etc. And then
so they go all the way back.
Back, and then they work their way forward, story by story, till they get to the present day where the event is to take place for that moment. So, for example, in Hanuman's flying to Lanka and meeting Ravana, and giving Sita the magic ring. So essentially you have all of that structured over a period of time, but it's in one place, unlike the Ram Leela in Ramgarh, which is done in a wide variety of different places, and it's very public. Kudiyattam is very private and done for relatively few people. I've even seen performances in which I was the only spectator in the entire
And they
house.
perform for one person.
Well, it wasn't really for me, it was for the god in the temple. So they're performing for their deity. They're not performing for the audience per se. Even if I wasn't there and no one was there, they'd still perform.
So their performance does not have any dialogues or anything. It's basically just the dance
No, there's not a dance. It's a acting. So they do actions such as Shamka, Kshira, Vapu, Pura, Treta, Yuge, Namna, Tu, Narayana. So it's a stylized chanting with movement and gesture, but not dance. So it's drama. It's really literally drama. Whereas South India is known for its dances.
Yeah.
Bharatanatyam and Kathak and Kuchipudi and Odissi, all of those dance forms that are so popular are literally dance forms. Whereas Kudiyattam is not a dance form. Kathakali is a dance form.
Yeah.
That's a dance drama form. It's like drama in the sense that it strings a story together in a narrative form, but it's not a acting form, like a drama.
It's in the dance that
Yeah,
they're reciting.
isn't, yes.
So next I want to know from you that you have studied a lot about the various different forms of ancient Indian dramas like Kutiyattam, Ankiyanat
Yes.
of Assam, and then the very famous Ramayana like we just spoke about. So what made you study the various genre of performance in India? The different genres. You have studied almost every genre.
A lot. I've shot, not everything, but a lot. Well, I've had students who have also studied in India, and so one of them studied Yakshagana from Udupi region, and I've had a student who studied Tamasha in Maharashtra, and recently one of my students just graduated with an emphasis on contemporary Bengali theater in Kolkata. So I became interested in the idea that India offers so many possibilities for students to do research, and I myself am interested in a lot of different art forms, but I just have to specialize and focus on one. At some point in time it became necessary to focus your mind on one thing, so Kudiyattam became that thing to focus on. But there's such a variety in India, and it's so fascinating that there are so many different ways to approach the human body and voice in space and time, that I felt this was, India is the right place to study. It's remarkable what the imagination that people have had in the different communities.
Do you think there's still some form of art in like small villages in India that has still not come forward in front of people?
Oh yeah. I believe there are many places where people still haven't seen the kinds of drama that exists and performances that exist in some of these regions. In Gujarat, for example, the Bhavai, which is a dying art form, is a wonderfully comic art form. It's delightful, but it's one of those things where Gujaratis are more interested in film and more interested in stage plays than they are necessarily in this Bhavai art form, which was very popular in many years, for many years within Sindh and Gujarat.
I'm going to take a break on that note, and after the break I'm going to talk more in depth about the Bollywood film industry and theater. So please stay tuned with us.
This month on Dish Cinema.
Is it true? You're Maleficent.
We're like a power couple.
Ah, you know that doesn't wash out.
I am Hercules!
Hey, shut the hangar door. Awesome!
When I heard that I get $50 for every friend I refer to Dish, I decided to make some calls. I got my brother Brad to switch to Dish. He got $50 too. He told me to tell my neighbor.
Thanks for referring me to Dish, Joe.
That's what friends are for. With the Dish Refer a Friend program, you can save $50 for each friend you refer, and your friends earn $50 too. It's easy. You request certificates from Dish by calling this number, then give the certificates to your friends. So call now, refer now, and start saving now.
Now, refer 3 friends to Dish and get a PS4.
સમાચાર તો ઘણા ચેનલ્સ આપે છે પણ ટીવી એશિયા શીખવે છે સમાચાર ઘટનાઓ પર તો હોય છે બધાની નજર પણ શું તેને બતાવવાનો નજરિયો હોય છે બરાબર તમને ગમતા મનને રીઝવતા તમારા પોતાના સમાચારોનું તૂફાન જુઓ કમ્યુનિટીની શાન ટીવી એશિયા પર
રોજ સાંજના 4:30 વાગે.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching Face to Face. Welcome back, Dr. Farley.
Thank you.
I want to know from you that with more commercial cinema taking over with Hollywood and Bollywood, do you think the theater is losing its charm or its existence in the Indian society?
Well, I think it's struggling. I think it's struggling a great deal because Bollywood is fascinating. I mean, certainly the ability of the film people to create such wonderful works. And I'm very enthusiastic about the Bollywood film industry itself. It's so unique, the dances are so exciting, and the staging techniques are so wonderful, and they've borrowed so heavily from a lot of different things and created their own magic. But unfortunately it has had a devastating effect over theater. A lot of people in the days when I was first studying it in the 60s and 70s were moving from theater to film.
Yeah.
But at a certain point in time, because of the captivation of film on the imagination of the Indian audiences, especially the masses, theater began to lose its charm. Only in certain places do you find people still enthusiastic about theater. Kolkata, of course, has for a long time been a center for theater, and even there it's still struggling. In Mumbai, there are a great many theater people in the Maharashtrian theater business, but they're struggling too because of the film industry and its dominance. So I'd say that so that we're faced with a problem. How do you resurrect or keep alive an interest in theater? And more than anything, I think that's true in America as well. It's the same problem here as it is in India.
Yeah.
Because look at the varieties of things you can do. Internet, you can do film, you can do television, you can do radio, and a lot of people just don't want to get out of their houses and go see a play.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the big problems I think that exists today.
So now you are doing a play.
Yes.
And talk to us about the play that you're doing now over here in New Jersey.
Yes. Well, I'm working with a group of Indian performers on a play by Molière, the French playwright in the 17th century, who wrote a wonderful play called Tartuffe. And we're calling our version of Tartuffe The Impostor, which was a subtitle of the play in French.
Oh, okay.
And so so we are doing this piece because it's about a person who bamboozles a family into thinking that he is highly religious and very saintly, when in fact he's very lustful and has a lech for the wife of the family. The husband thinks he's perfect and can do no wrong, but the rest of the family thinks he's an imposter. He's posturing as a holy man when he's really not. The play was actually done in Maharashtra as well. It was translated into Marathi. It's been done in the last few months in Calcutta and elsewhere in India. So it's a popular play in India because of that whole idea of imposters taking advantage of people, especially of gullible husbands. In this case, the husband is the gullible one.
Oh, okay. So Indian Cultural Society is part of it.
Yes.
They are organizing this event. So in the play, who have you taken? The people from the Indian Cultural Society or your students that you have taught?
No, not my students. I'm teaching via the internet right now. So I had two classes this morning on the internet.
Oh, wow.
So my students are back in Georgia studying, but they can see me, hear me, and I can show them material that I want them to read and look at. And so my department has allowed me to come here and to work with these actors. And this is the 4th year that I've been working with actors from the New Jersey community on plays that have to do somewhat with Indian culture. So this play is a little remote from most Indian culture because it's not an Indian play, but it's Indian-like in the fact that it's popular in India, and secondly, it has to do with being bamboozled or fooled by an imposter in a society. So it's a great comedy. It's very funny, and I hope a lot of people will come and see it.
They'll surely come.
Yeah.
And you direct plays, and you also give training to people in acting.
That's right.
Theater acting.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that side of you.
Yeah. Well, I just finished a couple of months ago Romeo and Juliet with students and professional people in Athens, Georgia, where I directed the play. And so I like working between different groups. So I was working entirely with people from the Athens community. And then up here in Jersey, I'm working entirely with Indians in an Indian setting, Indian community. And I kind of like that switching back and forth between the demands of one kind of culture and the demands of another. So that's what keeps me alive and interested in doing work in theater.
My one last question from you
Sure.
is that what would you say about the religious aspect of Indian traditional theater? How much of a religious influence is there in the Indian traditional theater?
Oh, tremendous. Yeah, the development of it from the ancient times in the 1st century BCE up through the present day. Even in contemporary theater, there are many groups that refuse to go on stage without doing puja to the stage itself or offering prayers backstage before they go on. So you find, even in the most modern theaters, there's still the traditions that are carried through. But I would say in the development, like in Ramlila, Raslila, Ankiyanada Basam, which is a religious-based theater form, Kathakali and Kerala started in temples, Kudiyatam in Chennai, the Bhagavata Mela, and these are all art forms that began with religious bases, and especially with the stories coming from the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the Puranas. So you get a tremendous influence. You don't find that true in Western theater so much. Western theater was resurrected in the Middle Ages in the cathedrals in Europe, but the priests kicked them out, the actors out of the theater, out of the temples, out of the cathedrals, and eventually they became secularized. So Shakespeare is one of the great beginnings of secular theater in the West, and in which religion is not a major part of the consideration. And from then on, it went that direction, away from religion and towards secular ideas.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's a great challenge to do work with here in New Jersey and in Athens as well.
Well, good luck for your
Thank
play.
you.
And it was really nice talking with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me.
So viewers, if you want to watch Farley Richmond's play, you can go and check it out on December 14th at the North Brunswick High School in North Brunswick, New Jersey. And it's the play by the Indian Cultural Society, and the play's name is The Imposter. Thank you for joining with us on Face to Face, and watch next week another episode of Face to Face with someone else who is sharing their story of success and being a role model for the society.